Class is in session, hitting the books. College basketball show Friday, March the 7th. Ian Cameron with you. We will be joined by Connor Mack very shortly. And we are all set for a big Friday and Saturday. We're going to have a couple of games, or a lot of games for the next 2 days that we are going to break down here on this edition of the show. We've got conference tournament action galore for tonight, other than the first game we're going to talk about. And we'll talk about some of the big games coming up on Saturday on this edition of the show, our final show of the week. A reminder, we are here for you Monday to Friday for the rest of the college basketball season, pretty much the rest of March, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Next week, of course, the power conferences get their conference tournaments going. So we've got an exciting month ahead. So let's get into it. We'll begin with the one regular season game that we are going to discuss in our game previews. It's Purdue taking on Illinois in the Big Ten. Illinois 4-point home favorites, 158.5 the total in this game. Certainly has looked like a completely different and improved Illinois team the last few games. They had hit kind of rock bottom with the loss they suffered against Duke, obviously in Madison Square Garden, but they have definitely kind of righted the ship since then and played some really solid basketball in their last handful of games. Some impressive wins, a blowout against Michigan in their last game, certainly getting the confidence going. And the three ball is starting to fall for them. It's amazing how much better you can be when that starts to happen. Purdue is also in the same predicament as Illinois. You know, Illinois went on a free fall, that 3-game losing streak, right around the same time Purdue went on their 4-game losing streak. And now both teams have responded with back-to-back wins and covers, Rutgers and UCLA, but both at home. Purdue's got to go on the road now where they have been a little bit untrustworthy is the word. They beat Iowa, not much of a big deal because it doesn't really move the needle for me with how Iowa's struggles. And then the last 3 Big Ten road games, they lost at Michigan, and then a 9-point loss and a 15-point loss to Michigan State and Indiana. For me, it's Illinois here. It's a small price at home. It's -4. One thing that's interesting is Illinois does possess a little bit of size that could bother Purdue. This is not one of the better Purdue front courts. So I like Illinois here. I will split it between the -4 and also the team total over 81.5. It is worth noting here that we've seen this Purdue team on the road give up more points. So that's the way I would approach it here with Illinois. Rather than putting it all in the -4 point spread, splitting it between that as well as the team total here. I think Illinois does get the job done here at home. All right, let's turn our attention to conference tournament action here on this Friday night. Missouri Valley play the quarterfinals. We've got Murray State taking on Bradley. The last 2 quarterfinals both taking place tonight. Bradley, 4.5, 5-point home 4.5, 5-point favorites, 132 the total in this game. I think Bradley wins. Bradley advances. I'm a little bit surprised the number came out as short, as it did in this game, because I do think there's a better basketball team than Murray State. Although Murray State did have a very impressive, by their standards anyway, a very impressive win yesterday in the first round. But I like Bradley here. They've done a great. Brian Wardle has had a track record of his teams going on runs, getting to the tournament title game. Of course, this team very used to making a run here in the Missouri Valley tournament. It's a solid basketball team this year. Once again, a little got nice mix of ability to score, ability to play defense, and I still Murray State shot uncharacteristically well last night in their game. Now they got to try to do it against a better team on a back-to-back. I will dare them to do that because, quite honestly, Murray State hasn't been a fluid offensive team much of this season. So I agree with the move, 3.5 up to 5, 4.5, 5. Bradley, I think, gets the job done, and I've got Bradley in my futures portfolio when it comes to the Missouri Valley tournament as well. The other Missouri Valley quarterfinal in St. Louis is Valpo and Northern Iowa. We've got Northern Iowa 9-point favorites, 139 the total in this game. Yeah, Northern Iowa's the better team, but you do have to be careful of a team like Valparaiso because we've seen it before in some of these conference tournaments where you see a team that just has the kind of absolute thumping and beatdown victory like Valparaiso had last night, 67-50 against Illinois Chicago. And sometimes that team can catch a little bit of momentum. Another thing that you have to factor in here too is these teams met just once during the regular season. It was in at Valparaiso, but Valpo is a 4.5-point dog. Beat Northern Iowa by a score of 80-73 in that game. So a sign that Valpo matched up pretty well. This is one of those deals where I think Northern Iowa wins, but I'm not 100% sure they cover. It's a lot of points, to be laying here with the Panthers of Northern Iowa. So, now that it's gone up as high as it actually went up as high as 10.5 at one point, and now we've seen some buyback on Valpo. I could see it being a single-digit game. I actually, once it got to 10, I took a piece of the Crusaders here, Valparaiso plus 10, settled back in at 9. This total's also taken a fall. Northern Iowa has not been playing very fast lately. Their offense has been a little bit inefficient as well. They've been held to 60 in 2 of their last games. And obviously, this is an under tournament historically, so I get the move to the under. Valpo is going to play fast, though. And Valpo also, that game with Northern Iowa, there was a lot of possessions there. It was 153 points. So I actually bought back a little bit over at 138 in this game. I thought a 5.5-point line move, I get it to the under from 143.5 to 138. But once it got down to 138, I said I'm going to take a shot with the over. I think it fell just a little too low once it got to that point. All right, Southern Conference, the SoCon, first round action. We've got the Citadel and VMI. We got the Keydets 6-point favorites, 138.5 being the total in this game. This is a pretty good rivalry. These are two military institutions that battle each year, obviously in the Southern Conference. Citadel's had a miserable year, 5-24. No road wins this year for the Citadel. I guess that would be the biggest fear you would have of backing them. And for as bad as they've been, 0-10 straight up run, 10 straight losses, they've only covered 3-point spreads. A lot of ugly losses. The question is going to be, can VMI win by margin here, laying 6? VMI did beat them by 12 back on February the 8th. But the game at the Citadel, they only won that one by 5. VMI probably does win this game. We'll see if they are able to win it by enough of a margin. I passed on it, quite honestly. The total, I do want to point out with Citadel and VMI, there were 145 and 152 as far as total points in the 2 previous regular season head-to-head meetings. So this is one where I thought the total was just a little light as well. So other than a small over bet here for me in this one, it's a rivalry setting. So if I was forced to bet it, I'd probably lean to the Citadel plus 6.5. Boy, it's hard to put your money on the Citadel on a team that hasn't got a single straight up W away from home this season. And of course, this tournament being on a neutral court. Sunbelt action, Sunbelt tournament, 4th round, Georgia State taking on Marshall. Marshall Thundering Herd, 7.5-point favorites. 151 is the total. There's another total that's been hit down. A lot of totals getting under money in these conference tournaments. And this is another one where the under's taken the money here with this one. Marshall away from home is not the kind of team I'm fully in love with laying these kind of points with. You've seen this repeatedly here from the Thundering Herd that, away from home, they've been a little bit dubious. I like them sometimes as road underdogs or road or neutral court underdogs. Road or neutral court favorite is kind of a different story for Marshall. These teams met twice, and it was the road team winning each time. Marshall won at Georgia State, and Georgia State returned the favor, winning at Marshall in the second meeting between these two teams. So it was a split season series. 4 straight head-to-head meetings between these teams. 6 of the last 7 have gone over. I kind of want to take that, but I get leery of betting these overs when we're talking about the 150s like we are here in this game. I mean, it's on a neutral court. I mean, the series history is pointed to higher scoring games with the Panthers and Thundering Herd. But like I said, I always get a little bit leery of taking overs in a conference tournament game when it's this high into the 150s here. I got to lean a little bit to Georgia State. I mean, you look at the way they were a point spread machine down the stretch. They covered 8 of their last 10 games. And look what they did as a dog. They covered every point spread as a dog except for one when they got blasted at James Madison. But other than that, Georgia State finished the season 5-1 against the spread as an underdog. That's something you better factor in here if you're thinking of laying the points with Marshall. This is a team that's been very good in the dog roll down the stretch, Georgia State. C-Mac, he's always very good in any role. And here he is here on the Getting the Book show. C-Mac, we'll just jump in here and get your thoughts on this one here. Sun Belt, Georgia State, Marshall.
I want to take Georgia State. This is one I haven't at all. I do think Marshall's better. You know, in some of those early games, like I think it's warranted and it could happen because we're talking about Georgia State here in Marshall. So favorites are going to win. But I don't really want to lay 7.5 with them. They look pretty good down the stretch. Now, two of those games were against App State and Old Dominion. To tell you that, the last four games, they split the series in this matchup you mentioned. I think you hit on it. All those games went over. I don't know how this doesn't either. I was trying to look too. Not the best free throw shooting teams, but they get to the line. I wrote a note of that. So I kind of lean over as well. This is one of the close ones for me. I don't know if I get to the window here. We don't have a ton of time. When's this game start, by the way?
6 p.m. Eastern, 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Yeah. I mean, the move. We've seen some work out, some not. Some
Favorites
of these moves
are doing better so far in conference tournaments than they've done in the past. So far. I mean, it's a very short, small sample size so far.
Well, a lot of it's first round.
Yeah.
And we're getting the bad teams out of the way a little bit. So, yeah. But, I mean, the way Georgia State's playing, I mean, I could see them losing by 15, but I think they could be in it. And we've seen drops because in conference tournaments we think of more unders. I think that's kind of to the matchup in the certain conference a little bit. But in the Sun Belt here, I mean, I now at 151, I lean over. Maybe the initial 155 wasn't it, but yeah, I think we could get late whistles here.
Old Dominion App State, the other Sun Belt fourth round matchup tonight in Pensacola. App State 8.5-point favorites, 126.5. This is probably going to be a low scoring grinder. I mean, look at last night with Texas State, Old Dominion. 64-61 under. 3 straight unders for ODU. 3 straight unders for App State. App State, I can't lay it with App State. App State didn't look good at all down the stretch. They are limping into this conference tournament. The Mountaineers, they didn't crack 60 points, App State, in their last 3 games. 2 of them against Marshall, 1 of them against Georgia Southern. That's not a team I'm looking to lay 8, 8.5. This tournament, by the way, this Sun Belt, every year, there's a team that has to play the very first day, and there's a team that somehow gets red hot and goes on a run, gets to the semifinals, gets to the quarterfinals, maybe even the championship game. There's been multiple teams that have done this, pulled this stunt in the Sun Belt in the past. Maybe it's going to be Old Dominion this year, because I got to admit, they've been impressive here these last 2 games. They beat ULL convincingly. The outright upset win is a dog against Texas State. Now, it is their 3rd game in 3 days, but that hasn't stopped teams in this particular conference from going on a huge run after just, starting the tournament the very first day and having to play every day. I've seen it before in the Sun Belt. Teams have gotten to the championship game after playing the very first day, and maybe Old Dominion it's going to be that team this year. And plus you factor in that App State 0-5 against the spread down the stretch, can't score 60 points down the stretch. How the hell do you lay the points with them? So by default, even with the fact that it's going to be 3rd game and 3 for ODU, I had to take the points here with the Monarchs of Old Dominion. C-Mac, what do you think?
No, I took it here flat out. I mean, the biggest problem is one of these teams, and it could be Old Dominion, just has a horrible shooting night. That leads me to I lean under in this game as well. Maybe even the first half under. The number is, what do we have here? Yeah, 58.5. Not a ton, but I think this game's low scoring. Yeah, I'm on Old Dominion. I can't trust App State at all. And I think Old Dominion's playing a little bit better basketball. I'll dare this team to win by 10 on a neutral.
I would agree. I think it's ODU or pass, certainly at the number after the move. All right, Summit League quarters. We'll do both of them at once just so we can speed the show along. South Dakota, North Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota State. You guys get that? Nobody confused?
One more time?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
North Dakota State, the Bison, 4.5-point favorites over South Dakota State, the Coyotes. That's 1 quarterfinal. And then you got the North Dakota Fighting Sioux getting 8.5 against the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, 155 the total. So it's an all Dakota quarterfinal round here tonight in the Summit League. So I like the dog in 1 game, South Dakota. I think I lean to the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State in the other. And I haven't played a ton of favorites in these conference tournaments, but I think South Dakota State might roll. I think North Dakota is the weakest team left, other than Denver, who got knocked out last night by St.
Yeah.
Thomas. I think South Dakota, you know what I like too? South Dakota State lost their last game of the regular season before this game tonight. So I think South Dakota State, and by the way, South Dakota State, I looked at CMAC, first tournament game last year in the Summit League, they won by double digits. They rolled. They were ready to go. And I think South Dakota State laying it, lay it or don't play it for me, for them against North Dakota. But the other game, North Dakota State didn't play great down the stretch. South Dakota nearly beat them the last time they played. I think you can make a case to take the dog, the Coyotes there, South Dakota and the other one. Those two Summit League games, CMAC, what do you think?
I can't do it. Yeah, they just played. It was a 4-point game. I think they could be right in it or win it. South Dakota, again, I don't have enough to bet on them. I think they played a lot better down the stretch. And then the other game, I think this is one. Lay it here. 7.5, 8. I think they're just a flat better team. Yeah. One thing with North Dakota, don't play any defense. In South Dakota State, that's why they win this game. They have the better defense. The only thing that keep North Dakota in this is hitting buckets and hitting threes. Yeah. The variance with that, of course, we're talking these games, especially teams that chuck it a ton. So that's kind of the lone thing. And if they're off, they get beat down. If they're hitting them, they can hang around.
No doubt. All right, we move along now to the next Ohio Valley. We're down to these semifinals in the Ohio Valley Conference. Little Rock and SEMO, Tennessee State, SIU, Edwardsville. SEMO, Southeast Missouri State, 3-point favorites, 136 the total. Tennessee State, Edwardsville, 3-point favorites, 140.5 the total. First game, don't have a strong opinion. I think if you got Pick'em at SEMO, I like it. Little Rock has had a habit of keeping games tight. So at 3, I think the value shifts a little to Little Rock, but I don't love it. The other game, I think I like Tennessee State. I've got a future on them to win the tournament. I mentioned that. They just took over against Lindenwood last night, blew out Lindenwood in the second half, turned that game into a romp. Edwardsville, not nearly the same team away from home, and of course they won't have the home court on their side here. Tennessee State's a solid team, and I like the way they played down the stretch. So being able to get Tennessee State now +3, it's going to be a small bet for me because I've got the future on them in the tournament. I also think that's the game that's maybe a little bit more high scoring, Tennessee State and Edwardsville. Tennessee State's going to push. Edwardsville plays above average pace. But like with all these overs in the Ohio Valley, none of these teams are great shooting teams. You could have all the pace you want. They're going to have to make shots. They're going to have to be efficient. It's always your concern when you're betting an over. But from a pace standpoint, there's reason to like over 140.5 there with Tennessee State and Edwardsville. CMAC, Ohio Valley semifinals are the two games there. What are you liking?
Yeah, has it come down too much? The total, I don't know. It's not enough for me to play. This one should be good. I think Tennessee State could kind of hang around, especially now you could get a 3 in this one. In the other game, I like the way Little Rock plays. They have to keep it low scoring. I know there's a shit ton of value. I like this under still, 136.5. And both these teams' defenses are pretty solid. They're not the best shooting teams. But SEMO, they've just been able to kind of beat up on them and have their number for a long time. It's just been a problem for Little Rock against them. So I think that game is tight. I'm looking at the under first half full game.
All right, there we go. Good stuff. All right, West Coast Conference, Orleans Arena, right in the backyard of Connor Mack in Las Vegas. Pepperdine, Portland, San Diego, Loyola Marymount. What a heartbreaker for me. I was on Pacific. I had the over in that game, so we split. But I also had Pacific, and man, Pacific just kind of coughed it up down the stretch. And credit to San Diego, their first 2-game win streak of the season, believe it or not, and their first win away from home as well. We got Portland 1-point favorites, 157 the total. San Diego, Loyola Marymount 7.5, 8-point favorites, 146.5 the total. So in the first game, I think Portland's a little cheap here. I'm going to buy into.
I agree.
The thing with Portland that I like is they've got a guy in Shante Leggins, the head coach. He's been around the conference tournament wars before, Eastern Washington. He won a conference tournament with them, obviously, when he coached that program. I think coaching matters. Pepperdine, a team that just I don't want to trust Pepperdine to win games for me. They are a team in the dog roll. I've taken them a few times, but asking them to win with that defense, I don't trust them. Portland can play a little. They're not good defensively either, but Pepperdine plays none. I think that's probably an over. It's a high total in a conference tournament, but 157, there's a reason it's that high. And then in the other game, look, Steve Lavin caught a little lightning in a bottle. He won the final regular season game of their season. They come all the way back from down almost double digits to Pacific, beat them. They've suddenly won 2 in a row. They got a little confidence. They got a little mojo to them. And Loyola Marymount, not exactly great as favorites down the stretch. Not even maybe. They lost outright to Portland as favorites. They lost outright by 25 to Pacific, Loyola Marymount, as an 11-point favorite. Maybe you got to ride the wave. San Diego's caught a little something. They don't have to win this game. They just got to compete. You're getting 8.5. So it'd be Toreros or pass for me in that game. And that's the over I really like. San Diego, Loyola Marymount. San Diego continues to just be flying over the total. Their games are going into the 150s, if not the 160s, pretty much every single game. Loyola Marymount's a defense that's given up 82 to Pepperdine, 76 to Santa Clara, 83 to Pacific, 89 to Portland. They've trended over in 3 of the last 5. If you look at head-to-head between these teams, we have seen the over cash 8 of the last 10 head-to-head games, Loyola, Marymount, and San Diego. So to be able to get just a 146.5 here, I think just not way too low. I don't want to get carried away because it is a conference tournament game, but I think it is too low with these two teams. CMAC, West Coast Conference, what do you think?
I think it's a little too low as well. And when I was looking at here, I don't know how much we make of San Diego in these 2 games. The problem is Loyola Marymount, just those stinker shitty games that they've had throughout the, season. They've had some really good ones, and they've been a lot better, at home. They're not a team that's crazy to the over. But I got to think with this line, I'm looking at Loyola Marymount team total here. San Diego just gives it up. Like I said, I think you lay it if on the side in this game, but I think you just go with the team total. Consistently, every team that's played San Diego, Pacific just 77, has gotten the 80s, basically, with a decent offense. Now, in Loyola, a little bit slower, not the best, but against a defense that's in the 300s and just, every category imaginable, college basketball.
Yep.
I think I've been looking at this team total, so I might be on that in the late game tonight. Yep. Oh, and the other one, I like Portland too. I think it's cheap. I think the line's, I guess, right, maybe a little fishy. I thought this could maybe, and it hasn't really moved, right? I thought this is one.
Portland's not very good, but I just think Pepperdine's worse. And I like the coach for Portland a little bit more because Shante Leggins has had a track record of conference tournament.
Yeah, I think Leggins is solid. I mean, this is even a pick 'em at some spots. So I lean their way too in this game.
I remember Portland were big dogs in some early season non-conference games too.
They've looked good at times.
They covered it,
and then and horrible at times. Yeah, I think they're overall the better team.
He's a good neutral court, neutral tournament, conference tournament type guy, Leggins, and that's kind of what I'm banking on here, taking Portland to get the job done and beat Pepperdine here tonight. All right, we go to the Big South quarterfinals. We had 2 this afternoon. What an almost choke job by Radford, man. They were up huge against Presbyterian, blew the lead, and then came back and tied it, and then they won it in overtime. But they almost blew a big one against Presbyterian, but they hung on, which is good because I have Radford in a money line parlay with one of the teams playing tonight. So the parlay is still alive. Barely.
I'm glad I didn't bet that. I might have had a heart attack because I was looking to lay it with Radford, and that was the team, Presbyterian, the Blue O's, playing pretty good basketball of late. And then you talked about OT, and they, if you had them, they covered.
Charleston Southern and Asheville is the first of the 2 quarterfinals tonight. We've got Asheville 6-point favorites, 149.5 the total in this one. I have a feeling Charleston Southern hangs in this. Asheville's a tough nut to crack because their best game they can win this going away. They have the talent to actually even win this tournament, Asheville. I know obviously Winthrop's very good. High Point by far is the team to beat. It's going to be very tough to beat High Point here in this Big South tournament. But definitely Asheville is one of the teams that, if not at High Point, they've got a chance. But they also have the chance of being beaten tonight by Charleston Southern, because Charleston Southern, I remember one of the games between them gave them a game this year. So I kind of like the dog there a little bit. The other one, Longwood and Winthrop. Winthrop is the team I parlayed with Radford. I've got a Radford and Winthrop money line parlay. I just don't think Longwood is as good this year. And Winthrop has owned Longwood this season, and Longwood knocked Winthrop out of the tournament last year. Longwood upset Winthrop in the Big South tournament last year. So I think Winthrop would take pleasure in kicking Longwood's ass a third straight time this year, because Longwood knocked him out in the tournament last year. So I think Winthrop wins. And I got a money line parlayed with Radford. So all I need is the win. I would still lean to lay in the points, though. It's still lay it or don't play it for me with Winthrop there. C-Mac, what do you think in the Big South?
You know what? I have to. I'm not going to bet this game. Winthrop playing a lot better basketball. I was on Longwood in one of these games. And Longwood all year till the last month has been great on the road and great on neutral, court games. But, man, talk about limping to the finish line. They got their ass drilled at home against Winthrop. There's one thing of losing it early on. They lost by 20, 21, 25 in both games. So, can they have a good game? I just haven't seen it. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if this game is close. I think there's definitely going to be points. So, I lean over. Obviously, we're at 160. Yeah. But, yeah, I was thinking this was, kind of Winthrop. Can they another third time? We'll see and cover.
All right. Next up, let's actually, that's it for tonight. We're going to move now to Saturday. We've got about 6 or 7 games that we're going to talk about for Saturday, the big slate, regular season action, that is, because there's no conference tournament lines available yet for Saturday's game. So it'll be all regular season power conference stuff that we're going to break down here for Saturday. And we'll start with Kentucky and Missouri in the SEC. Missouri 5-point home favorites, 168 the total. I love how this sets up for Dennis Gates and the Missouri Tigers, right? Back-to-back road losses, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. Remember, Oklahoma's a desperate team. They're right on the bubble, Oklahoma, and they took that game seriously with Missouri, and Missouri kind of walked right into that. Now, I am concerned about that Mizzou defense. They've gone over in 6 straight Missouri games, have gone over the total, and a large part of it is their defense has really collapsed in some of these road games, especially 92 to Arkansas, 97 to Vanderbilt, 96 allowed to Oklahoma for Missouri. But now they're back home in Columbia. There's been a great home court, 18-1 on the season, Missouri at home. They're off 2 losses. Kentucky's won 2 of their last 3. Kentucky's still hit or miss on the road. Didn't cover at Oklahoma, even though they won. Lost at Alabama. Lost at Texas. Lost at Ole Miss by double digits. I think this is a Mizzou spot. Stone cold Mizzou spot here Saturday at home against Kentucky. Now, the defense does worry me, because if you're going to lay points with a bad defense, but the defense has been bad on the road. We've seen Missouri at home do enough at that end of the court to win games, cover numbers. Don't forget, this team beat Alabama here on their home court, 110-98, crushed South Carolina in their last home game, and beat the shit out of Oklahoma. Before that, 82-58 here. So I like Mizzou. I'll likely be on them -5 here against Kentucky tomorrow in their home finale. C-Mac, what do you think there?
Yeah, I think the spot here is pretty good for Missouri after the back-to-back losses. But I think looking at this total, even this gets over. I just think it does.
How do you bet it under, even though it's 169?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
At 170. Look at the Florida-Alabama game. What'd they go to? 178?
Yep.
Easy. Not a problem. I just
Alabama at Missouri on this court was 208 points in that game.
Yeah. I think you take the over here. This might move up a little bit. We'll see. I just think both teams can score kind of at ease, and we don't have the best defense this year.
Yeah. All right, we move along. Next up, also in the SEC, the Iron Bowl rematch, second meeting this year, Alabama and Auburn. We've got Auburn, 8-point favorites, 178.5 being the total in this game. Now, I know Auburn clinched and a big part of why I loved Texas A&M earlier this week against Auburn was because they clinched everything. They wrapped up the SEC regular season outright title. They locked up the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament already, and you could tell they were prone for a letdown, and A&M just wanted it more than Auburn the other night. I think that Bruce Pearl's going to try to get his team's attention now to get back on track here, and certainly they're going to want to play well. It's their final regular season home game in the jungle. But
by the way, what's going on? Are they have it locked up? They're
right? Yeah, Auburn's locked everything up.
Okay.
They've locked everything up.
Maybe I was thinking of something else.
Yeah. And the 1 seed in the SEC tournament, which is why I love the spot for A&M the other night when they beat Auburn, because Auburn had clinched everything.
Yeah.
You know, and just it's not easy to simulate intensity when there's nothing on the line. Now, technically, there's nothing on the line again for Auburn. This is Alabama. I get it. A rival, and it's your final home game of the regular season. I get that too. But for Alabama, look at the way this is going for them. They just lost again at home to Florida earlier this week. You know, they kind of need to, put their foot in this and dig their foot in the sand here and say, hey, we got to turn things around, because Alabama's not necessarily played their best here in the last week or two of the regular season. You know, they've dropped back-to-back games to Tennessee on the road, Florida at home, 99-94. This is revenge for Bama, because Auburn went into Tuscaloosa February 15th and beat them 94-85. I get the sense this is an Alabama spot to give Auburn a game. I know Auburn's at home, and I get it that they're going to want to bounce back from the A&M game, but it's a lot of points to lay for a team with 0 on the line as far as positioning. They've locked everything up. SEC regular season, SEC number 1 seed for the tournament. For Bama, they've lost 2 in a row. This is revenge against their in-state rival, getting a good number, 8 points in this game. I think I got to be on Nate Oates here in Alabama, +8 here in this one. C-Mac, what do you think here in the Iron Bowl, the basketball version?
Basketball version. I think so, too. I think this is too many off of the loss, where they've been great all year on the road, which I've been not on.
They only lost by 4 at Tennessee. It's not like that was a blowout, or lost by 3. They lost on a buzzer.
3. I mean, hit the game winner. Yeah, from
that game at Tennessee as well.
Played great.
Yeah,
I know, especially another great first half. So, I mean, I just think, this is way too many. We'll see. I mean, Auburn at home is usually, I don't want to go against them, and I'm sure they still, huge rivalry here, but they got the tournament, coming up here right after SEC tournament.
Feels like even though Auburn will try to convince themselves they're going to be showing up and they want this one, does feel like a bigger game for Alabama than it is for Auburn.
A little bit. Yeah, they're dealing with some injuries, but I think they'll be fine. Nelson still played the other night.
He did. He did play the other night for Alabama in that 99. Like, defense was their issue. They obviously got scoring. They got 30 points from Sears. Grant Nelson had 10.
Yeah.
They got Phelan with 19. Omarui had 11. Youngblood 6. I mean, they got enough scoring from everybody, but again, we had the issues at the defensive end, which have been the issue.
Especially the other night, which Auburn can take, have success is inside. There was just way too many easy buckets at second chance.
This is another
Auburn could do that as well.
And this is another one. I know the total is 178.5. How the hell do you have faith in the under? Like, I actually took the over 177.5 with Florida and Alabama the other night. I said I still think that goes over, and it flew over.
I mean, this earlier a couple weeks ago had 170, 78 right at this line, right?
Yep, it did. Yep.
179, 94, 80. Yeah, okay, 179, 94, 85. I mean, I think, how do you take the under? I agree.
It's hard. Yeah, I know, like, people will always try to talk themselves into unders when totals this big in college basketball, but it's hard to with these 2 SEC games we just talked about. All right, Arizona and Kansas in the Big 12. We've got Kansas 2.5 3-point favorites, 153 the total here in this game. This is not the vintage Kansas team, but do I really want to fade them the final regular season home game at the Fog? Like, that's not your average home court. It's a team it's a legendary home court, home building. You would figure you're going to get probably a good effort here from Kansas at home. And we have seen some chinks in the armor with Arizona, at times when they've been on the road. I don't know if I'm going to actually take Kansas because, as I always say, I don't think they're particularly that good. But, it is final home game at the Fog. They're only laying 2.5. I don't think I'm going to fade them either. Probably a stay-away game, quite honestly. C-Mac, what do you think? Arizona, Kansas?
Well, obviously, it's tomorrow. I haven't bet it, but I'm going to look to back Kansas here. I mean, like, how are they going to shit all this at home? Which is possible with all the turmoil this team's had this year. But this short number, Arizona's been decent on the road, but coming out after back-to-back losses, the game was close, but they lost at home to Tech, and the offense just couldn't really get anything going against Houston. So I like Kansas here.
All right, Ole Miss in Florida as we go back to the SEC for this one with Ole Miss taking on Florida. Let me just see. We lost where the game is here. Hold on. There we go. Florida 11.5 point home favorites, 157.5 being the total here in this game. This is the first meeting this year, believe it or not. The only meeting between these two teams. They haven't played each other yet this year. Ole Miss, all of a sudden, a couple of wins, a home win against Tennessee. Both of these teams coming off huge wins. That was a big win for Ole Miss at home against Tennessee as they got them right at the end with a shot with, 8 seconds left that gave them the win. And then Florida goes on the road to Tuscaloosa. Huge win for them at Alabama, 99-94 after beating A&M at home, 89-70. But they're laying a big number. Ole Miss has caught a little bit of momentum, if you will, going into this game. I kind of lean to the big dog here and all the points with Ole Miss in this one, plus 11.5. As far as this total, I hate to be repetitive, C-Mac, but is this another SEC over? I mean, Ole Miss has been an over machine. Florida's cashed 3 straight overs. Even though their defense is better, defense has kind of fallen back a little bit, and their offense is just red hot. Like, they just consistently get into the 80s, if not the 90s, Florida. So it's tough to bet under, and it's probably got to lean over at 157. C-Mac, what do you think here? Ole Miss and Florida.
Yeah, I mean, unless you get kind of the Florida team from maybe earlier on the year where the defense was really, really playing well, I don't know if they can do that. As we've seen lately, a little bit the Florida team I thought we'd see, high-scoring games. Georgia, A&M, and Alabama all gone plenty over this number. Even before that, they get into 80s. It's just tough. I think it's a bounce back for Florida, but Ole Miss after the huge win, I was on them too. I think you were as well. Can they hang around double digits? I don't know. I got to look at it a little bit more.
Duke and North Carolina, as always, they wrap up the regular season playing one another. They played earlier this year at Cameron Indoor. Now they're in Chapel Hill, the Dean Dome. We've got Duke 11.5 point road favorites, 10.5, 11 actually in that range, 156.5 the total in this game. So Duke, look at this. 6 straight point spread covers. They're absolutely eviscerating the opponents. 36-point win against Stanford, 18-point win at Virginia, 43-point win against Illinois, 37-point win at Miami, 35-point win against Florida State, 33-point win against Wake Forest. And yet I'm being the stupid idiot that's going to take North Carolina probably in this spot here as a home underdog. And I'll explain.
At least they're playing their best basketball right now. North Carolina, the better.
That's part of it. The other part of it is this team is still very much like my favorite piece of gum when I was a kid, Bubblicious. They are still very much Bubblicious, North Carolina. They haven't clinched shit yet. They are far from secure as far as being in the NCAA tournament. They'd probably get in for sure if they somehow pull this upset against Duke. But what I think you're going to get from North Carolina in this game is whatever their best effort is. Whether it's enough is another story. But whatever their best effort is, you're going to see it here. And they have flipped a switch. Like, they played pretty bad competition but they're 5-0 straight up, 5-0 against the spread against NC State, Virginia, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech. They beat the shit out of all those teams. Now, I know none of those teams are anywhere close to Duke, but they beat the hell out of all those teams. That's got to be positive. I think the difference right now for North Carolina is RJ Davis is getting support. Like Lubin stepped up. They're getting Ian Jackson, Seth Trimble connecting, Drake Powell.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Can that continue? Like the last few games, they've been shooting the ball crazy. We got this Duke team with one of the best defenses. Like, I mean, Davis, Powell, they were just going crazy. I think Jackson hit 5 threes in that game. I mean, if they're hitting them, they're definitely in this game.
This means putting up a great battle in this game against mighty Duke for North Carolina, like I said, goes a long way for their tournament hopes. A win does. I don't think they'd get rewarded for a moral victory, but you're going to get one hell of an effort. They got thoroughly embarrassed at Cameron Indoor by Duke. Don't be fooled by the 17-point final score. They were down by like 20 or 30 for much of that game. Like it was over in the first half. So they're going to remember that. It is still a rivalry. I know it's a risk. It is tough to step in front of Duke right now because they are just annihilating teams one after another. But I have to take this many points in a spot where I know the home underdog, UNC, is bringing it. They have to because they're fighting for their tournament lives. They got embarrassed by this team earlier this year. I have to take it. Win or lose, I will not yell at myself if Duke wins by 20. I will say, you know what? I know what I'm getting into. I got to bet it anyway. North Carolina here. Sorry. C-Mac, what do you think?
I agree, and I don't think a ton of people are going to back them. Really,
I know that. Duke, so the Joe Public's going to be on Duke because they keep winning, they keep covering. We're going to keep betting them. Yep.
I have to say, like Illinois has just been. There's been very good moments from them. We'll see tonight, and some very bad ones, and that was at Madison Square Garden. But last time at Clemson, a better team, they lost. We were on Clemson, or at least I was. I think you were too. But Cal, Miami, Florida State, Wake, I know they're cleaning house. And this eyes have been on Duke team because the defense for forever. Because usually I thought they were always a little bit soft, and that's why they get bounced in the tournament. It's just, can North Carolina bring that a little bit? They have to bring some defense. Both these two teams, Urbano too, over. I mean, that's why it's total is that high. They've been red hot to the over. Duke scoring 100 points. And North Carolina, I think, has gone over in 6 straight, 7-2-1 the last 10.
Yep.
Yeah. So as long as they just don't go ice cold at home after getting their ass kicked, I think they can hang in this game.
All right, we go from one rivalry to another. Battle of LA, USC, UCLA. We've got UCLA 9.5-point favorites at Pauley. 144 the total in this game. First meeting, UCLA won at USC 82-76. Rematch here. I'm taking USC in the rematch. This is the angle. Home loss, revenge on the road as a dog in the rematch, and that says to bet USC here, getting 9.5 here at Pauley. And look, it's been a rough go for USC. They had lost 5 in a row, but they beat down Washington to snap the losing streak, 92-61. I think that gives them a little confidence. And it's March. It's now March. What does that mean? I want coaches in March that usually get the best out of their teams. It's a rebuilding year for Eric Musselman and USC. I get it. But Eric Musselman teams, I don't care how good they are personnel-wise or how bad they are, usually get the best out of an Eric Musselman team in the month of March. So I'm going to trust that. The revenge spot, road dog angle, USC plus the points. And you got to know I'm on another over with USC. You can't not bet this team over the total right now. They've been an over machine. And you might think, well, UCLA struggles to score, pretty good defensively, slower pace. Maybe you don't bet the over here. Look at the first meeting. Even with you at UCLA's defense and the slower pace, 82-76 in that first game, 158 points, flew over the total. So I think, you're getting a bargain in this total because UCLA's involved, but 144 for USC total is very low. I like the over. C-Mac, what do you think?
Well, yeah, that first game, it's just SC just doesn't play enough defense. Can they get up for it, and can they score? Because I like the other way here. And I've been on a ton of these overs, just the last one with Washington with SC. But I think this is a little more defense in this game. Who knows? Maybe not, because SC's defense is just giving the Olay to the hoop with everybody. So if UCLA gets to 80, maybe it does. But I'm looking at this under here on 144.
And we did see an over in the first meeting. Sometimes when it's a rivalry, the next meeting later in the year does reverse
Sometimes
itself.
these games, too, have been lower scoring over the years.
Yeah, no doubt. No, prior to this year's over, earlier this year, it had been 4 of the last 5 under head-to-head with the Trojans and the Bruins. So we'll see which way the total lands.
We'll be right back.
All right, no problem. We got one more game, and then we'll get Connor back for final thoughts, games that he likes tonight, and best bets to wrap it up. But Houston and Baylor. This is a late-night game coming up on Saturday. Houston, 4.5-point road favorites in Waco. 130.5 the total in this one. Houston, a team that I don't mind backing on the road. A perfect 9-0 straight up, away from home, away from the Fertitta Center this year. They went on the road and won and covered at Texas Tech. They went on the road, won and covered at Arizona, just as against 2 of the better teams in the Big 12. Now, Baylor got a big win, 61-58 at TCU. It's revenge because Houston beat Baylor at home, 76-65 earlier this year. I'm not stepping in front of Houston. They're the better of these 2 teams. I don't know if I'll lay it with Houston, but I'm damn sure not betting Baylor. Houston's the better team, better defense. They're rolling. They've shown the ability to go on the road and win, undefeated away from home. Like I said, they've beaten very good teams in the Big 12 on the road, like Arizona and Texas Tech. I just don't trust Baylor enough. This is lay it or don't play it for me with Houston as a short road favorite Saturday night. C-Mac, what do you think there? A little late night, Saturday night, Big 12 special, Houston, Baylor.
I can't take Baylor.
No.
I mean, this could be a big up spot for them. They got by TCU, by 3. I wasn't impressed with that game at all. And it's total super low showing it. So I doubt I get involved. I think it's Houston or nothing. There's just no way I can back Baylor.
All right, there you have it. There's our game-by-game previews. We'll go back to the Friday schedule, the Friday slate. We talked all the conference tournament action, but there is some regular season, and we talked Purdue, Illinois as well. But regular season action, the smaller stuff. Oh, and also Connor Mack joined us after we had already talked about Purdue, Illinois. So if he's got anything on that game, he can mention it. But anything on the regular season board for tonight, C-Mac, is there anything you like?
No, I mean, Memphis. I don't know how you could lay it. Maybe how can they? I know.
It's a system play for me. Penny Hardaway's double-digit favorites. I fade them.
Okay, it was unbelievable the last 3 years or so, and this year they've covered a few.
Yeah,
but it's double digits. I think it's like 8-2. It's something like that. When I was looking at it, VCU is better than Dayton. The game could be tight. I think the total was too high in that game.
I agree with that.
Under.
Not a big bet, very small bet because VCU, I've been eviscerated the times I've been trying to bet against VCU at home.
Yeah, I haven't. I backed them or just stayed off.
Yeah, that's just, good luck fading them there. But Dayton lost a fucking heartbreaker at home to VCU. Big time revenge motive. A lot of points for a pretty quality, pretty solid Dayton team in a revenge spot. I had to take Dayton. I know what I'm getting into there too. VCU's just been, crushing teams at home, but I had to take the 9.5 with Dayton.
Yeah, that's about it. A couple of these games I think could go over. Ball State, Miami, Ohio, Eastern Michigan, Kent State. So
I think I can make a case for every MAC game over tonight. Quite honestly, there's not a lot of teams.
I like the Eastern Michigan, Kent State. Yeah.
That over's getting blasted right now. It's up to 147.
I know. I got in here 145.5.
No doubt. What else? Oh yeah, Colorado State, Boise State's one hell of a game. I'm looking forward because Colorado State is on fuego right now. Nico Medved and his Colorado Rams. But guess what? Boise at home has been really good lately. We've seen Boise beat some pretty damn good teams there at their home building. So that's a tough one to call. Colorado State and Boise, but that's a great game to watch. I think those
I like Boise, but
might be getting
Yeah.
too many points. Revenge, too. New Mexico beat them at Thomas and Mack.
Oh, game was
yeah.
They blew it. That's back when UNLV couldn't win a game in those tight ones. They covered, but it was just back and forth the whole way.
And right now, Kruger's got them playing their best basketball of the season.
A little late.
Yeah.
Richland, everyone's stepping up with Thomas out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can hit.
I took UNLV there, plus 12. Yep. Took a shot that they can keep that game close, even at the pit, which we know is a tough place to play. All right, let's wrap the show up. Let's shout out everyone in the chat, then we'll get to best bets. Justin McKelvey, Joseph Joe, T. Moss, Timothy Hake, GNL Photo, Rick J, Old E, Kenny Woo Woo Woo, and we appreciate everybody joining us here. Remember, we're here Monday to Friday, and we're back again on Monday next week for another week of shows. Looking for, and next week we got the Big Boys Conference Tournament starting. Big East, Big 10, SEC.
The big boys play.
Big 12. Yep, all the big guys and their conference tournaments get going next week. All right, best bets to wrap up the show. C-Mac, what do you got for Friday? Oh, sorry about that. Friday best bet. And Saturday.
Friday.
We've got one.
Yeah, let's give both. I'm just taking it. This team's I got to take him. I got 8.5. Old Dominion, 8.5. I think they're still 8s. That's fine. And Saturday, I was thinking that Kentucky, Missouri over on a total, but you know what? Because I just hadn't bet it. We don't ever give me Kansas. Lay the 2.5. Big win for them at home.
All right, there you go. Good stuff from Connor Mack there. Best bets for me. I'll give you one from Friday, one from Saturday as well. Friday, let's go to some late night West Coast Conference action. I kind of hinted at it. 146, best number. Let's go San Diego, Loyola Marymount, over 146, West Coast Conference. San Diego, Loyola Marymount, over 146, minus 120 for my Friday best bet. Saturday best bet, lots of good choices here in this slate of games that we talked about. I think I'm taking, I'm going to take Missouri. Minus 4.5 at DraftKings. Missouri against Kentucky. I think it's just a great situational spot. Get well after 2 road losses for Missouri. Kentucky's still been hit or miss on the road. They're flying high off a couple of nice wins. So Missouri minus 4.5 to get the job done tomorrow in Columbia against Kentucky for my best bet for Saturday.
Did you touch on St. John's Marquette? Let's answer a question for our guy, Nick.
We did.
Yeah, hit us up with if you had a quick question. But yeah, did you have anything there? So St. John's is all locked up too. I was trying to look. I thought there was one that wasn't. Are they all seated? Yeah, they're all good too. Yeah, with that win the other night. Yeah, okay. I remember that. Yeah, the other day.
They got it against Seton Hall. They didn't cover though.
You
could tell they were kind of, they knew they were going to win. It's just they didn't. That's what I worry about. They showed kind of a lackadaisical mindset against Seton Hall. They did enough to win, but they weren't exactly dominant in that game.
You know what I like in that game?
It's probably Marquette or
under.
For me. Yeah.
I mean, they problems with UConn, but I think the total's too high in that game.
Yeah, I agree. Under's a good play. St. John's, believe it or not, they're 16-13 to the under this year. Marquette 18-12 to the under. This year. So, yeah, the total may be the best way to go. Yeah, Marquette or pass. Don't know if I bet it, but it's Marquette or pass for me there. There you have it. Good stuff. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hope you guys have it. It's a great weekend. Lots of smaller conference tournament action, of course. The regular season wraps up as well in a lot of the other conferences, and then we're back on Monday. Looking forward to it. Hit the like button on the way out. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night and a great weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will be back with you on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, for another edition of the College Basketball Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.